Raila Odinga's elder brother, Dr. Oburu Odinga, was the one who lifted the lead on the raging public debate that forms the basis of our discussion tonight on Pundits Night. He claimed that Raila lacked the system to make him a president. Days later, Deputy President William Ruto dared the so-called deep state and system. Raila fired a salvo back at the second in command, saying he's part of the deep state. But in a constitutional democracy, is there power behind the throne? How deep or otherwise is that power? Good evening and welcome to Pundits Night with me, Abu Bakr Abdullahi. Thank you for, as always, making time for us. Remember, you can be part of this discussion. Send us a message on 22047. The hashtag to use on Twitter is Pundits Night. You can call in on the number on your screen as well and be part of this discussion. The question we are asking you tonight is whether you believe that the deep state exists. Your answers and opinion counts and matters on this show. Gladly, we'll be reading them on air. Let me bring my guests tonight, Herman Manyora, our residential political analyst, Caleb Kositani, MP Soy, who is a Jubilee Deputy Secretary General as well, William Kamket, Tiati Lawmaker, and Tim Wanyoni, Westlands Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for making time for us tonight on TV 47.
Thank you.
Let me start with you, Herman. Does the deep state first exist? Is it a reality or a conspiracy theory?
Well, deep state is not quite something you can put your hand on. It's usually an informal grouping, sometimes no more than a pressure group. Mm-hmm. But in the ordinary sense, the deep state would refer to a group of men, perhaps and women increasingly, who may not be formally within government, so they're operating outside government, but they have enormous influence to the extent, at the very extreme, they hold government hostage. There have been countries where the deep state...
you say they are not part of the government?
In other words, I'm saying those men and women outside formal power, formal government, but exercising serious control over government.
Herman, you say they are not in government, which begs the question, where do they get their
Sometimes even holding the president hostage. But they vary in terms of abilities and in terms of many other things. In some countries, they come from establishment in terms of, may come from the military, from the intelligence, sometimes from business community, and sometimes in Africa, just tribal groupings or people who come from a powerful, say, tribe, and they want to maintain hegemony in the country.
All
so
right,
the deep state is a loose term,
let me interject
referring really to pressure groups with varying degrees of power and influence.
Let me interject you at that point. You say there are people who necessarily are not within government and they have influence, which begs the question, where do they get their influence from?
Bakar, I can't quite get you. You are very faint and
all right, let me bring in Caleb Kositani, Soy Member of Parliament, to the discussion.
Now I can hear you very clearly now. I can hear you clearly now.
All right, in your answer you said they are not necessarily within government, but they can hold the government hostage, at ransom, which begs the question, where do they get their influence from?
Yes. You see, statehood is a very intricate thing. Government and governments are formed in very different ways. Sometimes it's the men and women who put you there. When you want to become president or prime minister, you need the support of individuals and groupings. And these groupings have interests. So once you go to State House or White House or wherever, 10 Downing Street, wherever you operate from, those who put you in power could be so powerful that you always, at all times, do their bidding. That at all times, Even in the extremes of cases we saw, like in South Africa, you can even make an appointment of a, and then they tell you to change that appointment of a cabinet secretary.
All right, we'll come to the power. We'll come to the power.
Yeah.
Herman will come to the power and much of this discussion a little bit later in this discussion. Nonetheless, let me bring in Soy Member of Parliament Caleb Kositany to the discussion, who is also the Jubilee Deputy Secretary General. Caleb, same question. Is it a reality that the deep state first exists, or is it a conspiracy theory, as some say?
Thank you, Abu Bakr. I think it's a fact that the deep state does exist. And who is the deep state? The deep state, as my good friend Professor Herman Manyora has said, are people who are not necessarily in elective position, but they are the wheeler dealers of government. In any major corruption scandal, you will find the deep state fellows who are untouchable. You will find them pushing deals here and there. You will find them making decisions because they are generally, deep state fellows are campaign financiers, as Herman has put it there. They actually finance governments during their campaign, a particular political party, and then they want to have their say on who is appointed to what position, because they have to recover the money they have spent on you during the campaign. But as I have said, I have always said earlier, and I will continue sticking on that line, is that the real deep state is the people of Kenya and their voters' card. Those are the people who can always deal with these few individuals. They may not even be more than 10, but they really hold a lot of power.
Caleb, you say the real deep state is the people. If these are influential persons who can influence decisions at the high-ranking top levels, what guarantees then that it is the people that matter?
What guarantees you the people that matter? Look at 2002, where our current president, Uhuru Kenyatta, was endorsed by the retired President Moi, who wielded a lot of power with the old constitution, and he was running against Mwai Kibaki. The margin in votes difference was overwhelming, over a million plus votes. I think President Uhuru managed 1.9, and Kibaki was at President Kibaki was at 3.5 million. So the margin was about 2 million votes. That is the deep state of the people, because once the margin is so wide, the deep state just caves in, and they will just chicken out and embrace the government that comes in of the day. So I think we do, as has been said earlier, deep state are scaremongers. They will influence intimidation, like we have seen today happening in the Senate, where 3 members of the Senate were arrested. That is the work of the deep state, because they want to be seen to be pleasing the master.
Caleb Kositany, are you saying what we saw today, the arrest of members of senators, is by extension the work of the so-called deep state?
That is exactly the work of deep state. Because
how is it so? How is it so?
Look at the way it all happened. You cannot tell me, Abu Bakr, that the arrest of Malala, Senator for Samburu, and the Senator for Bomet was not intermarried with the vote that the Senate were meant to carry out today. And we want to thank the young senators who gave it their all in the House, and Team Kenya, for they came out strongly. Because we want the counties to be given money, but yes, let us have a discussion about it. It's not that the decision is made elsewhere and then it is just sent to rubber stamp. So we've always said this top-down approach must come to an end. And that is what the deep state understands. So they have decided now, we want X amount of money to go to this particular county, and then they will follow it up there with the deals. Look at what has happened in Kemsa. Names are being mentioned of the who are who's, and if I can assure you, once there will be total exposure of the revelation of the names, you will see the deep state fellows in it.
All right, let me bring back.
Hello.
All right, let me bring back Herman to the discussion. Kenya observably, and I say observably again with lots of reservations, is a constitutional democracy where Kenyans go and elect whomever they want in whatever capacity that the constitution has provided for. If then the leaders are influenced by other powers, as you have insinuated in this discussion, what is the essence of having some in power if at all they are powerless at the end of the day?
That is me? Abubakar, is that me? Hello?
Yes, Manyora, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm saying, statehood, like I said, is a very intricate thing. The formation of government is a very difficult and complex thing. There are many players involved. And usually, and I've repeated this many times, save for a government that comes in place through a revolution, almost all other forms of government, almost all modern states exist to give a few individuals a place to exploit. So that in any country, the leadership of that country, they may even appear to be competing. There's nothing like competition. The state is an infrastructure for a few people to enjoy. And therefore, for anybody to tell you that the leadership of an ordinary government anywhere in the world is in the interest of people, they will be lying to you. It is in their own interest. So there are different players at the top, pretending even to be competing. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, their intention is to exploit whatever it is that that country has in terms of resources, and never in the interest of the people of that country. What people get is a byproduct, like almost leftovers. Uh-huh. After the big boys have shared what the country has to offer, then small little things may trickle down to the individuals down there, human beings who live in that country. Mm-hmm. And I'm repeating, except in instances where somebody gets to power through a revolution because he has an idea, a certain ideology mm-hmm. that he wants to pursue that is people-centered. Very few people can get to power and do, for example, what Kagame is doing. That you can see what Kagame is doing is surely in the interest of the people of Rwanda. Uh-huh. Others may appear to be doing so, but ultimately I can assure you there is very little power in the hands of the common people.
All right, you give an example. You give an example that has as well been widely disputed. Nonetheless, the very context of this discussion
disputed
is the
like how?
Pardon?
How was it disputed?
In the essence of claiming that Kagame is working for the interest of the people of Rwanda.
If you look at Rwanda, for example, you cannot compare Rwanda, a small country, to these big countries around. You can see what is, of course, sometimes people of that nature, revolutionary leaders, kind of stipple democracy if we understand democracy in the Western sense. Mm-hmm. You get it? So the people will say Gaddafi was not a good person. But if you look at what he was able to do for the people of Libya, the only thing you can point out, he was a dictator in the Western sense. So I'm saying that the people who come to power sometimes through revolutions have something they want to achieve for the people and the country. But all these other leaders, they try, but basically the state is an infrastructure for them to do what they want to do in terms of exercise power and exploit the resources of the country.
All right, Herman Manyora, point made. I understand we have Tim Wanyonyi, Westlands lawmaker now. Good evening, Mheshimiwa. Thank you for making time for us. We are making sense of the deep state, the so-called deep state, the system, and the presidency. I'm looking here at the words of the elder brother of Raila Odinga, and he says, we have not gained the presidency because we did not know the system. Now we have a system. In a democracy where people vote, for any leader to say that they did not have the system, that's why they failed, will sound as though it is inherently wrong.
Hello, is it me now?
Yes.
Okay, I believe, first let me thank you for inviting me to this show. And this thing called deep state, or as is also called system, it's a very complex thing that needs somebody to thoroughly dissect it to understand what it really is. Which means there are some deep-rooted ideas or people who manipulate or who try to fix things. And these are called Mr. Fixers. Sometimes you can go to election, win an election, and the result comes that you have lost. And sometimes those who are, as they call, politically correct, they find themselves in a position which they did not deserve. And that is why we are looking at this thing, and we should. I believe we should try to get things right through the ballot. That when you win election through the ballot, we should not look on the side who is there to put you on. I think that is the best way to go. But the system, as it's called, I think these are just interested groups of people that are not in power. They are sitting somewhere, but they want to make sure whoever is in power is their man or is their woman who will be now pushing the agenda. I think that is the way I look at it. But for us and for any country to move forward, we need to go through the most recognized way of capturing power through the ballot.
All right, Tim, you have answered the question. Nonetheless, to the specifics of the question I have asked, it seems as though you have not, which is for Oburu Odinga to claim that Raila Odinga is yet to become a president because he did not have a system, to some sounds as though it is inherently wrong.
I think he's entitled to his opinion, because I think Raila Odinga can still win election without these 6 system fixers. Because I believe even those who are claiming to be in control of the system, even themselves at some time, now some people are even, when the advantage shifts, they start crying for. And I think whatever Dr. Oburu said, that is his opinion, and I believe that the people of Kenya can elect Raila Odinga without having people to fix the results of the system, as it's called now, system or deep state.
All right.
But we know this fellows. Yes.
All right. For curiosity purposes, is it an idea within or near ODM as a party that the party is yet to clinch to the presidency because of this? Just for curiosity purposes.
No, it is not an idea of ODM. I have said that's a personal opinion, and he's entitled to his opinion. I don't think it is as a party agenda. We don't have that kind of idea. We want to capture power through the ballot the same way, but we don't want people, if we just fix the loose ends, especially at the IPC, then it will be easy for a candidate to win election without looking for somebody to fix it.
All right. Caleb Kositani, I ask you this question with the specifics of the public description that you are more than a member of parliament and more than the Jubilee Deputy Secretary General, a foot soldier of the Vice President, the Deputy President, William Ruto. And when Ruto says, and I quote, we are threatened that there is a system, that there is a deep state, that even if you vote, there will be people who will rig out our votes, that there are people who will sit somewhere and decide. We are waiting for those people and the system and the deep state. It seems as though there is we. He's not on the show tonight to answer who those we are. Nonetheless, is there a fear from the man who many describe you as his foot soldier that things may go otherwise because of a purported deep state?
Well, Abu Bakr, if you had just continued a little further, the DP ended his statement by saying, bring it on, we are ready for you, we shall come with God and the people. you come with your deep state. So
in fact,
there is absolutely no fear.
All right,
we were just calling them out.
Let me end my quote. He says they will come with the system and deep state, but we will come with the people and God.
Thank you. That is not a man who is scared. That is a man who is just informing the deep state that we know you exist, as per Dr. Oburu's sentiments. And you remember, Abubakar, that's how unfair and hypocritical people are in this country. Because when Oburu mentioned the deep state story, nobody criticized him, nobody denied the existence of deep state. But when the DP mentioned it, then there was hue and cry. But Oburu confirmed, and that is a position that the deep state truly does exist. And we are not scared. We, as those who are behind the Deputy President William Ruto, we are very happy that the conversation has now changed. You remember earlier on we were being told by two characters who I believe are members of Deep State that William Ruto will not be in the ballot in 2022. William Ruto is corrupt. William Ruto is this, is that. Now, those same characters are the ones who had been promising Kalonzo the presidency. They had been dangling the same carrot to Mudavadi. I'm sure they were dangling the same carrot to Wetangula. Eventually, last week, they came out and said, we are prepared for a Raila Odinga presidency. So we are happy now that that conversation has changed, that they have identified a candidate who will face Dr. William Ruto in the ballot in 2022. And that is where we want. We want a level playing field. We want, as Honorable my colleague Tim Wanyonyi has said, we want whoever captures power to capture it through the sovereign will of the people, and that is through the ballot.
All right, you say these are the words of a man who is calling out the so-called deep state, but how can the second in command of a nation such as Kenya, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, then is it not an irony that he is claiming as though there are some in this deep state that he is not part of?
Well, they are in, one thing that is not hidden is that William Ruto is no longer recognized by this government as a person who is a key player. He is the deputy president now because of the vote, but not because of the functioning of government. He is not invited to cabinet meetings. He is not invited to the security meetings, which he is entitled to. The president has not delegated any responsibilities to him, and it's no secret that he's out of day-to-day running of government business. And I think it is a good thing. It is a good thing because now he can have time to concentrate on his 2022 presidential bid without having to look back and say maybe the boss would have wanted me to do A, B, C, D. But we're firmly in Jubilee, going through a lot of problems, of course. But I'm sure we will navigate and get back on track and get to our destination.
All right, Herman Manyora, how can possibly one explain the statements, for instance, of the Deputy President when he says he is not part of the deep state? He points fingers at a certain people whom he says he is ready to square out with them.
It is not uncommon for the second in command in a country to be reduced to nothing. That happens in many places.
Why do you say so, Herman?
Even in this country, Jaramogi, before resigning, had been actually rendered powerless. For some time, Moi was just a man who persevered, but he went through a lot of trouble. The same with Saitoti, and at some point, they said with Moi, some people tried to poison him. Down south here in Malawi, the deputy president or the vice president fell out with the president, and for like 3-4 years up to the end of the term, he just earned a salary and there was nothing else. So I'm saying it's not unusual. It is common that at some point you may fall out with your boss, and because of constitutional constraints, he may not have the power to ask you to go home. So you just hang on in there and earn your salary and do your thing. So this could be happening to Deputy President. I don't know. I'm hearing it from Kostani. But it surprises many people that the Deputy President of the country can say there are people after him To many people, that is interpreted to mean he's attacking the president, his own boss. Because you can't say those kind of things unless you are really obviously attacking your boss.
He hasn't specified.
As to his ability.
He hasn't specified of who these comments were targeted at. He uses the word they in reference to them. Will it not be quite early to suppose and summarize that this is pointed to the president himself?
Surely, who else would wield that kind of power? Who else would wield that kind of power to make the deputy president uncomfortable? Who else in this country? Who has the power to make Kostani and his boss uncomfortable? It can only be the president. So, but you see, Ruto is a courageous man, he's a bold man, he's a tough man, and like he says, bring it on. Well, maybe he knows what we don't know, but what I'm saying is people are finding it a little curious that the deputy president should be talking of the deep state. You get? What again makes people say so is that there is a general feeling in this country, rightly or wrongly, that he, William Ruto, must be a beneficiary of the same deep state, given the disputed nature of the disputed elections of 2013 and 2017. So people are saying even he benefited from the deep state, and he knows what the deep state can do. And perhaps the only reason why he's saying bring it on is because he was so deep in the deep state, he can walk away with part of that deep state to face the other remaining deep state. You see what I'm saying? Those are some of the complications.
Ahmed, let me ask you a statement and phrase it as a question to Caleb Kostani. Is the deputy president a beneficiary? Was he a beneficiary of the deep state, Caleb?
Deputy President is not a beneficiary of the deep state. We went to the ballot. I don't think the deep state did exist during the 2013 election and 2017, because if it did, and if it was functioning, then we wouldn't have gone for a rerun in the presidential elections in 2017. And let me say this just to answer Manyora on what he has said, that maybe because they have been disputed elections, and that is why people think that is deep state. It has the only person who has always caused dispute in presidential election is whenever Raila Odinga is a candidate. You remember that in 2002, when he was not a candidate, we never had any issue with the election results. The results were announced. President Kibaki accepted his victory. President Uhuru Kenyatta accepted defeat. We were in Kanu then. I remember when we went to Serena to give the acceptance speech. And it's about accepting the results. So I think the issue of trying to claim, and I said this before, that ODM have told a lie about elections being rigged until they have believed the lie. They actually believe that there is deep state and there is some people who will cook results and hand over the power to you. And it seems they are now believing a second lie. It's sad. But I really want to tell ODM and Raila Odinga, a person who I voted for once in my voting, in my political time, that please just go to the people, and the people of Kenya will decide. They will exercise their sovereign will.
Caleb, how do you then justify the court's decision to nullify an election because of the process, when you say it is just a habit and a usual scenario from ODM?
Well, you see, Abu Bakr, the elections were nullified on the process.
Yes.
That Form A was not, Form X was not properly, how were the results transmitted and everything. But there was never a dispute. There was never a dispute on the actual results. Counting of votes, 1, 2, 3, 4, to a million, to 5 million. There was never a dispute on the number of votes. But there was only a dispute on the process.
Caleb, at the end of the day, Kenya's top court nullified that election, citing the process had a problem. And there was a judicial justification.
Yes,
and there was a judicial justification to that.
Yes, I am sure if there was an opportunity for the same judges to sit again and go through it, I'm sure they'll give a different judgment.
All right, Herman Manyora, you seem to be smiling, if not laughing. You have a point.
Yeah, you know, That narrative is tired and old. Caleb, surely the votes are a product of a process, number one. Number two, we are going through the healing process after the handshake of 9th of March 2018. We shouldn't even be discussing these kind of things. Because it was not just a question of Form 34A, from this and this. There were very serious issues that were brought out in the Supreme Court, including the servers. Up to date, they have not been opened, my friend. There were very serious issues. And those kind of issues could not have been there unless there was some controlling hand from somewhere beyond the participants. If it was just an innocent side of Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto fighting another innocent side of Raila Odinga and his NASA brigade with Kalonzo and Mudavadi and the rest, surely that would have been very clear in the Supreme Court. But what came out from the Supreme Court, and anybody who lives in this country would tell you what happened, surely could not have happened through a very innocent contest. There were issues that were brought out in the court even in 2013. And therefore, we are going through a healing process. We are going through a process of reconciliation and talking to each other as brothers and sisters as we head towards 2022. But that doesn't mean we should accept this tired narrative of people not accepting defeat. People should accept defeat. People should concede defeat. That's the culture we want. But for that to happen, my friend Caleb must be told, elections must be free and fair and transparent. And the transition, the handover process must be accepted, that one man can lose and hand over to another man or to another woman. That's where we want to move from 2022 onwards.
All right, Herman, let me bring Tim Wanyonyi, Westland's lawmaker, to the discussion. Looking at what your party leader, ODM, of course, Raila Odinga, said in relation to a question he was asked whether he is a member of the deep state. He said, and I quote, "You know where I am. I hold no position in government. The government is led by the president, whose name you know, and his deputy, whose name you also know. So if you are talking about the deep state, who is there? It is the president and his deputy." This was an answer to a question he was asked on whether he is a member of the deep state or whether he is in the deep state. Raila Odinga is a long-serving career, of course, in politics, a member of parliament, once a prime minister, powerful to that extent. When he says he's not a member of the deep state, yet at those positions, he could have been privy to information. Is it not then self-defeating that he claims he's not a member of the deep state?
He's stating just stating the fact that he is not part of the government. He is not in the government. So this deep state, if it exists within the government machinery. So Raila Odinga is not part of the government. And that's what he was saying.
And he's not part of another deep state that could be out of government, you suppose?
No, deep state can only exist within the government, I think, arrangement. It cannot exist in a vacuum. It cannot exist in the opposition because the wielders of power are in government. They are not outside government. And I think if you just look back, there was once when President Moi said, just before he left power, he said in Kiswahili, hii kitu iko na wenyewe. Na wenyewe, now we come to know, wenyewe are these guys being called deep state. They are the guys who sit somewhere in a corner and decide who is going to be in what position. And whether you win at the ballot, if they wish, they say it's not you, it will not be you. And you can go to judiciary and you'll still be fixed. You can go anywhere and you'll still be fixed. So, and Kibaki was the one who escaped this because the Kenyans, it was like a revolution at that time. The Kenyans came out together and elected Kibaki. And those deep system fellows were defeated at that time. But the preceding elections, 2007, 2013, 2017, they was closely vote and at the end, you find that there was a dispute because the 202 election, it was a clear victory for Kibaki vis-a-vis President Uhuru Kenyatta. But you can look at the succeeding elections, they were very close to call.
Tim, you are pointing out two elections in which your party and your party leader vied for presidency and he lost, coming second. Is it a deep state only when your party leader loses an election?
It's not a deep state. It's quite obvious that Raila Odinga won 2007 election. And even President Mwai Kibaki was ready to concede defeat, but he was told nothing doing. He waits and are going to make sure that he is the president. That's why he was hurriedly sworn in at night. If he had won election clearly, he should have waited to go to Uhuru Park and be sworn in the way he was sworn in the first time. Why would you be sworn in at night if you won election? So I'm saying, election, we need free and fair election for anybody who wants to ascend to power, not through fixers. So these shadowy fellows, we should fight them and we should make sure that we get things right. Somebody wins an election, he should be given that position.
All right, Mheshimiwa, thank you for your thoughts. You're watching Pundits Night. Remember, your voice matters. As a viewer, you can be part of this discussion. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night. Text us on 22047. Call us as well on the number on your screen. Let me go through some of your feedback on 22047. Someone was not mentioned. His or her name says, System or Deep State 2022 Ruto Ndani, your State House. Watching from Mombasa, Patrick Patoski says, thank you, my MP Kositani. Keep it up. That is Chepturo Leonard from Ziwa. Keep talking to us. Send us a message. You can call in on the number on your screen. We are taking a short break here on Pundits Night. We'll be back with this discussion after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Pundits Night. Thank you for choosing to stay with us. The question we are asking you tonight is whether you believe that the so-called deep state exists. Talk to us on 22047. The hashtag to use is Pundits Night on Twitter. Let's get back to our discussion. Just a reminder of who our guests are tonight. Herman Manyora, our residential analyst. Caleb Kositani, Soy Member of Parliament, who is also the Jubilee Deputy Secretary General, and Tim Wanyonyi, Member of Parliament for Westlands constituency. Let me get back to Caleb Kositani. We have talked of the statement that the Deputy President made in relation to the deep state and the so-called deep state, which begs the question, will Ruto be in a position to fight back the so-called deep state if at all it exists?
Well, Abubakar, Ruto is not an individual. Ruto has followers everywhere, and that is why he is on everybody's lips for a very long time since the 2017 general election. He has been the only presidential candidate that has come up prior to 2022 election. And now we have a proposal, we've not heard from him directly, that Raila Odinga will be joining him in the ballot. So he is not alone. He has a team, a lot of followers, millions of followers. And I think, as I said earlier, the people of Kenya are the actual deep state. They will deal with the deep state at the ballot. Let us now focus on how we build our party manifestos. We, first of all, let us sort out the COVID-19 pandemic, and we pray that we start flattening the curve. And we also appeal that those who have squandered money from KEMSA are brought to book so that we may be accountable, especially for funds that are meant to alleviate Kenyans and save lives from this pandemic. So there should be no scaremongering. We are ready for the 2022 election. As and when it comes, Team William Ruto is ready, and we want to have a very formidable competition. All right,
Caleb, you say the people are the deep state. Understanding the description of the deep state that we have talked about for the better part of this show, your argument that the people are the deep state sounds more or less of a consolation statement.
Why do you say so, Abubakar?
If you, and the answer you gave to the first question was, these are few individuals who are influential and they exist, what will stop them from existing post 2021, 2022?
They will be stopped because clearly, first of all, they will not be supporting Dr. William Ruto in his 2022 bid. They will definitely be supporting their preferred candidate who they have named. So the people of Kenya, once they have exercised their sovereign will, as is enshrined in our constitution, then we'll have dealt with the deep state, and they will be enjoying whatever they have managed to amass from their businesses, from government deals, and they'll be living comfortable lives. But they will no longer be calling the shots in government. And that is their greatest fear. That is why they are working day and night to install a president, not one elected by Kenyans, but one proposed by the deep state, financed and campaigned for, and if possible, rigged in. And then that is why they want such a kind of president. And I think the way I know, the little I know about Raila Odinga, I don't think he wants that kind of thing. I'm sure he is a person who wants to still be seen to be fighting for democracy, to be seen to be going to the people, seeking their mandate. And once they give the mandate, then he will be able to exercise the power that the people will have given him. And I would call on Raila at this moment and in future that let us have a fair contest between you and William Ruto and accept the results once they're out.
All right, Herman, it's not always the case of the deep state winning or influencing a win. In 2013, Musalia Mudavadi is said to have been the deep state's favorite, the run-up to that election. So the deputy president and the president elected. It's not always the deep state's way, is it?
Well, first of all, I've said it is a very loose term, deep state. But there are people with an interest in the country and in government. I do not buy the idea that since independence, the deep state in this country has ever been threatened, not even once. Forget about it. In fact, I'm doing a book that should come out in the course of next year, or if lucky, this next year, in which I argue strongly that there's nothing like Uhuru losing to Kibaki. The people were tricked by Moi into playing into his hands. Because I keep asking Kenyans,
We can't
surely
hear
if you
Manyora.
can't wanted to win in 20, you can't hear me? Can you hear now? Can you hear?
Now we can hear you.
Okay,
Go ahead,
Abubakar,
Manyora.
can you hear me? Now you can hear. But you see, I do not believe the deep state has ever lost since 1963. They have been in control up to yesterday and up to today. In 2002, I believe this was a Moi trick to get the Railas and the rest of these people to go to Kibaki. As he processed Uhuru from what Uhuru was to be ready for presidency at some future, which he became. That is my, my thinking. In 2013, it is still the same group that ensured Uhuru went for the presidency. So at what point have they ever lost? Because if 2002, if Kanu wanted to win and they fielded George Saitoti, God rest his soul, he was my friend. Do you think there's anybody in this country who could have beaten George Saitoti? Even at that time, the young Mudavadi, who was popular, if Kanu wanted to win, all they needed to do was field Saitoti or Mudavadi. So these were all schemes. The deep state has never lost. And that's why I'm saying I support the handshake, because we want to get to a point where a man or a woman will campaign, talk to Kenyans, and then he's elected and he becomes
Elected without a
so
deep
that
state.
even as elected by the people, we want to move away from these games people play to stop others from becoming president. And I agree with Caleb Kostani that Raila has fought so hard. He has wanted to be president this many times. I very much doubt that he would enjoy the presidency in 2022 if he was given by the deep state. Sitting in the State House, you won't even enjoy it. After all those years of struggle, I want to agree with Caleb Kostani that Raila Odinga would want to win in a free and fair election and enjoy his presidency that he won. Similarly, Ruto should also contest. If he wins, well and good. He should. But we are working from the 9th of March, 2018. I am sure we as a people are working towards removing all these shenanigans. But for my friend Caleb Kostani, with the people and God,
Herman,
I want to tell you this.
Herman, is it not quite contradicting
Yes.
that you point out to the handshake, whereas some have the perception as though the proponents of the handshake are from the deep state itself?
You know, sometimes I like giving men the benefit of the doubt. Listening to Raila and Uhuru on the steps of Arambe House on the 9th of March, I kind of believed them. And therefore the idea of the handshake, the idea of BBI, I have into it. I believe these two gentlemen look back at what we have gone through as a people, and they genuinely intend to walk us away from that direction, so that as a people, we chart a path where, like I've said, that anybody aspiring to be president of this country and has what it takes, Kenyans give him and he goes to State House without anybody stop. I believe it. That's what I'm saying.
All right, let me bring back Tim Wanyonyi, Westlands lawmaker, to the discussion. Understanding then that it's not a necessity for ODM, neither is it a necessity for Raila to have the backing of the deep state. If one is to ask, in all the attempts and stabs that Odinga made to the presidency, is there any belief, in your own opinion, that in one way or another it could have been influenced by people?
I think Raila will be elected by the people if he's going to run in 2022. What I would like to tell even my friend Kostani is that we would like to see if the deputy president will also concede defeat, if he's defeated fair and square in 2022. He's saying Raila Odinga has never accepted defeat. If you lose fairly, surely you will just concede defeat and wish the winner the best of luck to continue to run the government. But if you very well tip that you have not lost an election, and then you find yourself you have lost, just definitely you will not agree with the results. What we want is fair election. We want IEBC to be fixed. We want people to go out there and vote and elect their president. Not some fellows sitting somewhere in a corner who are going to fix the results. We want these things to end so that we don't have to go to an election and come out and go to the streets. We want to go to an election and come out, shake hands, and then move on with life, because that's not the end of life. We will come, if it's fairly, we'll come back and fight another day. And I believe this is the thing that we need to do. And Raila Odinga is a very fair fellow. He has fought good fights, and I think he can fight another fight, and he will still win this election.
Tim, I understand we are out of time. You say Raila Odinga has never lost an election?
I'm saying if he loses an election fairly, the two elections, especially 2007, I believe 2007 Raila Odinga won an election. 2013, Raila Odinga won an election, but still it was disputed, and Uhuru and Ruto were sworn in as the people who had won. But I believe he has never lost. The only election Raila Odinga lost is 1997. But the rest, I don't think so. Even William Ruto was the 2007, Raila Odinga won an election.
All right, you talk of the 2007 hotly contested election. It was the results, of course, international monitors, of course, as well questioning the outcome of that election. The 2013, the figures were out, and as far as the defeat was concerned, if Raila Odinga, your party leader, vies 2022, will he be open to any of the outcome?
If it's fair, yes. Why not? If it's a fair, free and fair election, we will accept the results.
All right, one last question. All right, one last question as well to Caleb Kostani, MP Soy, of course, who is also the Jubilee Deputy Secretary General. What will it take for your, I almost say party boss, nonetheless, your deputy party boss to defeat the deep state that he talks of?
Well, Abu Bakr, I believe up to now, with all the hurdles and shenanigans that have been going on against the deputy president, so far he has beaten the deep state. When they tried branding him a thief, that story has since gone off, where the real thieves are now being known, and they're stealing in a mega way, in an unapologetic way, in a very inhumane way, in a very, I can't even describe it. If what we saw yesterday in one of the medias is something to go by, then we cry for our beloved country. I think the deep state, William Ruto has outwitted the deep state. They don't know what to do with him. He has adopted a weapon of silence, which is a very, very powerful weapon. But still they find a way. He finds a way to the headlines of the newspapers. And I remember talking to one of the editors, and he says, when we don't have William Ruto in the headlines, our sales are absolutely low.
Caleb, so, I understand we are extremely out of time. Nonetheless, you say he has defeated them already. To some, he is an isolated man who has lost power.
You'll give me a minute.
The power is with the people, Abu Bakr. The power is not with any other person. The power is with God and the people, and that is where we lie, and we rely on that.
Herman Manyora as well, one final question to anyone who intends to get to the highest of power positions in this country. Is it a must for influential people such as the deep state, the so-called deep state, to have their blessing?
This is for everybody, but particularly for Caleb Kostani. If you live in this country, you must be naive to a very dangerous level. You must be naive to a very dangerous level. actually one will have to have monumental stupidity to imagine that if the deep state is against you, you can land at State House. And that is why I'm repeating. We want to remove this idea of shadowy figures fixing our elections. Because Caleb Kostani knows it, he may be thinking we don't know he knows. You know Caleb. Unless we fix our elections to the point the deep state becomes irrelevant, you cannot win against them. And that's what we must do. We must fix that so that William Ruto wins fair and square and goes to State House. If it's Raila Odinga, fair and square, State House. But so long as the deep state exists in this country, in the manner in which it does, my friend, William Ruto will be fair game. He will be dead on arrival.
All right, Herman, I understand we are out of time. Herman Manyora is our residential political analyst. Caleb Kostani is SOI Member of Parliament, who is also the Deputy Secretary General of the ruling Jubilee Party. Tim Wanyonyi is Westland's lawmaker. Gentlemen, thank you for making time for us tonight on TV47.
Thank you for having us.
All right, that brings us to the end of tonight's edition of Pundits Night. On behalf of the entire team that made this production possible, bye for now. Enjoy the rest of our programs. Good night and God bless.